All right, Gavin here with the second podcast of the OneMent, and very excited that you're here. My guest today is KDB, and she has a very unique story that we'll be going into in detail. Just got done interviewing her, and I know that the questions I'm asking are probably a lot of the questions you've had as either a Course in Miracles student, a spiritual student, and like, what would it look like if you just, kind of let go of your current job and your house and went to Mexico? That's what Katie did. So I'm excited to share that with you and go through her story and what she's learned and overcoming fears and her faith and connecting with God and what a normal day looks like for her, how she's done it. It's a fascinating story. I'm excited to share it with you. So let's dive in. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here, Gavin. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. There's things in life like you get asked things all the time, and a movie I used to really love is Yes Man. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I love it.
Yeah, he has to say yes to everything, right? And so I'm always like, well, people say yes to this thing they don't really know anything about. So thank you for saying yes. And I just want, we're just getting started with this OneMent podcast and, really teaching and sharing oneness, who we really are, our love. And, when I started thinking about people that I wanted to talk to, have a discussion with, you could say interview, like you were at the forefront of my mind because I want, and we'll get into this, and I want to share kind of like, your journey. I have so many questions to ask. I've been so intrigued. Like there's this part of me, like my soul is like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous of, of kind of what you've done. But the quick story is, and she'll be doing more talking than me, don't worry, is I moved to Sarasota a little over a year ago. It was like in August of 2021. And I had met somebody on Instagram, just somebody I followed that was, of course, a Miracle student, D-Day. And my wife and I had lunch with her, and we had coffee. And then we were talking. We're like, oh, always starting a book club. Dee said that. And we're like, hey, we'll be in, we'd love to be there. And then we show up. And that's when we met the wonderfulness that is KDB, right? So, and then my wife and I you do sound healing. Do you call it sound healing?
I like to call it be a sound practitioner. Because I'm not a healer. I just, it comes through me and heals people. I'm just a conduit.
Yeah, we did one, like we call it sacred, like we at that park right on the water. And she did this amazing, sound bath, and then woke us up right at sunset. And we didn't really know. We just kind of showed up, and we're like, oh, and I was like, oh, wow. So we've gotten to receive many of her gifts. You will find out that she has many. So one of the things after a few of our book club meetings that once a month, like I think it was like in the third or fourth meeting, you dropped what I would say the unfortunate news for the rest of the group that you were going to be leaving and going elsewhere. And I kind of want to take that over, to you maybe now to kind of tell us a little bit about that story, a little bit about your past. You could possibly start with like A Course in Miracles, when you got involved with that, and then we'll get into your journey. But I'll ask you, make it simple. When did you first come across A Course in Miracles?
Well, let me start with the story of how I first came into my faith again, because that's kind of where it all started. And that was around 2014. Okay. I got a DUI and had to go through all that process. And before I was doing that, I was kind of, and this is another lesson where I am now, is like I was wavering. I was like, do I trust in my faith completely, or do I stay where I am and, keep doing the things I've been doing that haven't been working? Do I go to church and then go, out drinking? Do I do this? Do I do that? Up and down, and round and round. And we know that where that leads us.
Yeah.
To a crash.
Yes.
So I went through the process of that, and while I was doing that, I chose him. I chose to go to God, and that was the first time I had really gotten back into my faith since I was in high school.
Okay.
So 25 years ago, and even then I was raised Catholic and didn't really understand who God was. Like I knew there was one, and I knew he was up there, but I didn't quite know what he did, and I didn't trust, and I didn't have faith. I just walked through it. So this is when I started diving in and like realizing that, wow, look at all these things that happen when you trust and when you put your faith in something.
Yeah.
So I had been handed the Course in Miracles at that time, also to follow, but I had more dove into the Bible at that time. Gotcha. And then in these past 3 years, I've been introduced to some people that have been living Course in Miracles, and they just pop up. So it's taken me, and I have to say, like in my journey now that I've been in Mexico, it's taken me some hard hits and some bits of resistance to really, really see again what the wavering does. Like, do I want to, put my head here? Do I want to put my head here? My energy there? And again, the circling, the ups and downs finally led to, okay, I really, really, really just want to get into the truth. And for me, the Course in Miracles has been showing me that exact truth now, like exactly who I am. And I had to go through, what they call the deep, dark night of the soul a few times.
I feel like there's multiple of those, right?
I'm sure there's going to be more.
You make it seem like it's just one, and then there's this epiphany, and you're no, that's not the case.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So recently, again, that's why I just started diving into the lessons from lesson number 1. I've never done it. I know I don't have to be accountable to anyone, but I'm sharing my journey with everyone. And that's been my thing on Facebook and Instagram too. I've never been a sharer, I've never been a communicator. So for me to really just start doing that and throwing myself out there, literally, has been just growth for me. It's just been immense growth.
2 things on that note. First of all, go find her Instagram or Facebook page and follow her, because number 1, you're an amazing writer. Like, I feel like you could just make a book and put it on Amazon of just your Facebook posts, right? Yeah. And it's almost like this journal of like your heart. So there's times it's like very poetic, but very clear. So you're an extremely good writer. I want to give you that feedback. Mm-hmm. Number 2, like I loved how open you are, right? You're very transparent and authentic, and I admire that. And I think it's really cool. And, I know online you don't always get all like the likes or how many people are comments, but you'd be surprised at how many people are like really paying attention and watching. I would be one of those people. Like I told you, I don't get on Facebook much, but I get on to like catch up with your posts, right? Yeah. So let's take a step back. Was it 9-10 months ago? When did you go to Mexico?
I've been going for a little over 1.5 years. So the last time I sold my house and decided to go fully.
Yes. When did you go fully?
February of last year.
Okay. So last February, so almost a year now, I know you were like at a crossroads, like with work and like direction. And you said to yourself, I'm just gonna what? Walk us through that.
I'm just gonna go for it. And funny, a friend of mine the other day that I was sitting having lunch with said, you were always the one that had the job lined up. You always had the house. You were the first one to buy a house in our group. You were settled in, and then now look at you. And of course, many people don't understand the journey, because one is, how can you do that if you have so many responsibilities?
Yeah.
And 2, it's to me, like, now I say, well, I live in a foreign country, and it seems like it's a lot when you say it, but once you do it, it becomes like, oh yeah, I live in a foreign country. Or in my country now, because I have part-time residency there. So,
and I know you've lived it, but I want to like get our audience into your shoes. So you sold your house.
sold my house.
And with just your car, drove to Mexico and closed.
No, I actually flew.
Oh, you did fly?
Is still here, yeah.
Okay, you had your car here. Okay.
That has not been completed yet.
and then that was like the one thing of like, oh, I got to have a car to go back to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, still holding me. There's still just the little tiny pieces.
No, which there's no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then you knew your destination where you were going to go, which you can share that. But also then like from there, like, did you have any other plans, or you just like, I'm just going to go?
Yeah. So before I sold my house, I also left a job that I was in because it was becoming me. Like the job was becoming me. I was becoming nothing else. And I had gotten more into the sound practitioner course and the workshops, and had started actually giving the sessions. So that became more of a reality to me. And it became more of a feeling of like, this is my purpose. Like, I'm not supposed to be sitting in a cubicle, I'm supposed to be doing this. And God shows me plenty of ways that have been led to connecting with that. And it just, you can tell like when my passion rises when I'm doing it. And now I don't even know I'm doing it. I just sit there and I'm just a vessel. It literally takes me over. So I had quit my job, and long story short with them, I'm also still contracting. So I kept, a money income source. And then I started doing the retreats in Mexico. So we've been through 3, 4, 5 retreats in total.
Okay.
And all of them were intense, and they were just full of miracles and just beautiful situations where you see the actual authenticity of people and like what it is to connect with people. And really, I have this thing I want to read. And one of the things that we did in these retreats was a letter to God and a letter from God. So in other words, what would God say to you, if he had the letter to you? And I just been led to this today. And it just really, for one, has summed up a lot of what I've been going through during the retreats, and what the end result is, and the final, or whatever you want to call it, the one thing that we're supposed to be doing is loving each other. And when we catch ourselves not, there comes the guilt, there comes the defensiveness, there comes the attack. All this just because I didn't stop, pray, and just what I'm going to read you here is just say that I love you, and that's where I want to come from.
You're right.
And how many times we don't stop to do that, and it just turns into one of those spirals I was talking about.
I can totally relate, and I can't wait to hear this.
I'm going to try not to cry when I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Only these thoughts occupy my heart. There is so much love, so much love. If you knew how much I love you, you would melt in ecstasy. If you knew how much I love you, your heart would be free. If you knew how much I loved you, your mind would cease to be. If you knew how much I love you, you'd get carried away and melt into me. Would you let yourself go? If you knew how much I love you, would you come home and be with me? And, when I read that and heard that, what if, that was my letter from God?
Yeah.
And a huge, huge part of that deep, dark night that we were just talking about, my recent one, was me finding a reason why I've been so defensive since I was a child, and I've just carried it all the way through. And it came from a feeling of loss and separation when I was given up for adoption. Like I wasn't good enough for someone to say, yep, I'll stand up for you. I'll defend you. I'll keep you here, and I'll do whatever I need to do. Now, of course, I got given to some amazing people, and I have these parents that I couldn't have asked for more wonderful people to raise me. And still going to this day.
Right.
But that little package that I thought I was given as a problem or a challenge was actually a gift. And unfortunately, my mind has taken it to the opposite, So it took me a conflict, going through a conflict to see like, oh my God, you know what I've been doing all this time? And guess who's been receiving the pain,
Yes.
So this really struck me today. And like, if God, he's been saying that to me the whole time. If you only knew how much I loved you.
Yeah.
And everything is for you.
Yeah.
Not against you.
Yeah. Just imagine having that knowing and then living that. Like, talk about just like a life full of miracles. Everything is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just unfolding and allowing it. And yeah. And then that's the unpeeling of the layers, right? Is
yes,
getting to that realization that seems so elusive and difficult when all these appearances come our way of all the things that we judge as bad, right?
Yeah, today's lesson. Don't say it's good or bad.
Exactly. So
the layers are so, to me, they're sometimes overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And probably why I've resisted it for so long, because I was like, you know what? I went through this shit 7 years ago. I don't want to do it again. I don't want to get all up in there again.
Exactly. It's like the more we heal, or the farther we, the more layers that we uncover and dissolve, it's like the more there are, it feels like, where you're like, oh, I finally got to this place, like I'm good. And then something will happen. And this happened to me recently. And it's like, you're not as good as you thought you were.
Yeah.
There's more. You're like,
I've been working on that.
Can we have some measurement or some degree of like where I'm at in the more part of this?
Yeah, so true.
But I guess where would the fun with that be? And like we're no matter what we do, we can't mess it up. We're heading in the right direction, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been in Mexico for a year, and you've done. I didn't know you did all these retreats, and I'm going to have you share more about that at the end and talk about that more in case people didn't know about it and want to know about it. Okay. And I have some questions. I've done a little bit of homework, right? Trying to like, okay, what is this podcasting thing? How can I do this in the most highest beneficial way? So did a little bit of homework, and I want to ask you some questions just in general, but also like having to do with Mexico, and then some of your Facebook posts. So you already asked the first one. Actually, a couple of them. Has Mexico been what you expected?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I knew, of course, the fear was there. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is it for? And I knew like all of it would be leading to my purpose, but still those fears creep up. Like, how am I going to keep doing this? What if there's no one around? What if I get sick? All the things that come up, and doubts and fears. So I think like that was the main part of not, when I first went, but then when I soaked into it, it's such a simplistic and loving culture. When I sold my house, I sold a lot of my things, right? I'm traveling pretty lightly now. Yeah. Most things I have are my sound equipment. So the attachment to things, and the attachment to wanting, and the attachment to doing to get more was one of the first things that I released. And it's like now, even when I'm back here, I'm like, I don't even want to, like, I have my favorite restaurants, right? But I'm like, it's okay if I go or not. Before I'd be like, check this off the list, check that off the list, check this off the list. Now I'm like, I got to get a good pair of shoes to walk in on the cobblestones, and, pick up my favorite shampoo, and, the simple things. But even those things are, if I do it, it's okay. If it's not, it's not. And to become okay with that, and to become okay with like their simplistic lifestyle of just living day by day. We were I'm now living on the beach, and a hurricane was coming, and we were at a restaurant, and we said, are you guys leaving? Where are you going? And they're like, why? Like they didn't even know. But here we are, Americans tracking the storm, when it's coming, what the water's doing. And they're like, what? No, we're not leaving. We're staying here. We're protected. We are protected. They truly believe, they trust 100%. It doesn't even snap for them. They're just like, yeah, we're going nowhere. So it's really changed my mindset on having less to focus on.
Yeah.
And
has that been, was that hard in the beginning? Like that free, like time, not having all these to-do lists, not having all these things to do, not having all these distractions, right? Yeah. Was that scary? Like,
yes.
Because that, that sounds kind of scary to me. Like I've had some things recently happen that I've purposely taken off my plate, which used to take up a lot of time. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
So like, how did that look for you when like literally your whole world changed? No job, no house, new country.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know very many people?
I knew a handful of people. So that made it easy. And really when I first went down there.
Easier, right?
Easier. When I first moved down there, I stepped right into the retreat. So I was in full function. Believe me, full function. And even in that sense, coming in as a doer, like you said, I usually filled my nights with something to do. I also would take the time when I needed like my space or nights to read or nights to just be, but I was as a doer. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to undo and unlearn, because when there isn't the space, and then I just learned this in this last retreat, when there's not the space for you to take that time to spend with God, like even if I was getting up at 4:00 in the morning to spend 30 minutes, and then the next morning I didn't want to get up at 4:30 to do it, I noticed it. I noticed it completely. And I think this word just keeps coming to me right now is spiral. Like when we're not grounded and we're not in the foundation of our faith, and we're doing that wavering that we were talking about.
Right. Yep.
That's when it becomes scary. But when I was in full function and, in the retreats, that's a different story, because I was still doing. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you weren't doing the retreats, how were you utilizing all that extra time?
That's what was scary to me, but became very beautiful, because when I was in Ajijic, we're on a beautiful lake. So nature is my time to pray and time to just be. So there was, horses, cows, birds, the lake with the fish and ducks. And that's where I would go. And even just like, I would feed the cows every day. I'd bring apples to the cows and the horses, and just connecting like in that source with the nature brought me closer to to God, of course, because I was involving myself in these beautiful things surrounding me. And reading. I did a lot of reading, resting, which for me was big, because before the time I moved, I was moving so much, and, I was moving out of a house into another house temporarily, and into another house, my things. And I still had pets at the time. So it was just a lot happening before I came into Mexico. So then, it was like what am I supposed to do now? I have to rest in God. I have to sit and be still. And
for sure. And like the teaching of A Course in Miracles, you need do nothing, right?
Yeah.
That like you actually have gotten to experience that, and like experientially, right? Would be the best way to describe it. Like actually live it.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah. And that's again, where like Facebook and Instagram and stuff come in to purpose for me, because I can express myself easily on there and really just put all myself into it. And I'm sure people judge me, but whatever. That's it's the fact that I can do it without worrying about that. Like I've gotten into a place where I just want to express how I feel. And for me to be learning how to do that has been through my writing mainly.
Yeah. Well, like I said again before, you are gifted at it. And, I remember when you first went, and, there's this huge part of me that was like, oh, I'm just getting to know this person and know, like, but there's this other part of me that was like, oh, so good for her. I can't wait to like watch how this unfolds and hear all the stories. And then like when I saw your Facebook post, I'm like, she just go back for like the last year, just scroll back. You can read about her whole journey. If she's having a bad day, she shared it. If she was scared, she shared it. And so it's kind of like been watching this, flower like kind of bloom, all year, and like we get to do it with you, right?
Yeah.
And so I so appreciate you sharing it. Also, how you mentioned like, oh, some people probably judged me, and what I would like, what comes up for me, and that is there probably were a lot of people that so didn't understand it. It was so some words that coming up: obnoxious, crazy, irresponsible, right? Would be like how people looked at it, like, and they couldn't understand it. I totally understood it, right? I'll just say that. Yet, that's like almost the fear within them coming up of like, oh my gosh, what if she goes and finds God? What if she finds happiness? What if she like discovers who she really is? Like, there's almost like this like ego part of us that like people would want to root against it, to be like, see, that was a stupid idea, right? And this is just part of your journey. You're not telling anybody to go move to Mexico, or they can look for everybody differently. And I don't know, just what I wanted to share is like, I think a lot of people have been admiring it like me. And then there's other people who are like, I don't get it, but they're still reading, still watching. And at some soul level, it's resonating with them, which is why they're curious. Like, I want to understand what she's doing. So hopefully those people listen to this.
Yeah. I mean, like projection has been a huge lesson for me. Like, and it's funny because you asked when I was actually handed the Course in Miracles was 2014, but I just, breezed through it like an oracle, and whatever read and resonated, I kept.
Sure.
But the projection part was always hard for me. Like, what do you mean? Like and now I'm like seeing like the actual parts that are really me. Like, this is really me inside. And the truth of me is, like I just read, Jesus thinks, if you only knew how much I loved you, would you have done this? If you only knew how much I loved you, come home to me. Like, only step in this path. And again, the wavering. And sometimes when we get set off course and we don't notice that, it's like it just keeps spiraling and it keeps getting worse and you keep getting further away. But then when you finally step back and you're like, oh my God, I see it. I see it now. Like, for me, it takes a 2x4. It always has.
I think that's true for a lot of people. And something you said, that what do you think he means when he says, come home to me? What does it look like in this perceptual world to come home to Jesus or to God?
That's beautiful. What comes closely to first in mind is that we go to that love. And what is it? The 4 agreements, don't take things personally. Yeah. I can't tell you how hard I've been working on that one, and I still don't have it, right? Like, I might take that personally because I'm just not there. But
it's a huge step, though.
It's the awareness.
You're not there. The awareness that most people are just like, they don't realize how much they take personal. So I'm giving you a pat on the back.
Thanks. But that's what the come home to me would be like. I just say, yep, thank you, or nope, that's not for me, and move on instead of take it personally and just carry it with me. And then again, it gets into that spiral.
So do you feel like over this last year, you've been happier? Not, I know you don't want to measure happiness, but compared to like, and then like the past, I mean, it's hard in A Course in Miracles, like terms, it's like, you don't want to judge or analyze too much in the past and present and future. Yet, have you noticed your sense of peace?
I've noticed like the sense of peace in that I'm finding my truth. Like every time I get discouraged or when I felt alone in Mexico, I would say, here I am doing it. Like how many people, like you were just saying, number one, would do it? And number two, how many people had the chance to do it? Like God was just opening paths for me. And he's like, go, this is for you. And of course I was that person that was saying, no, that's crazy. I can't do that. How? And then he just kept opening the paths. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And I got that before I moved to Florida, same kind of scenario, you know, I trusted and jumped the gun on retirement kind of and moved to Florida before it was in my 5-year plan. But when I did it, and the miracles were literally falling on top of my head is the minute I said yes. So for me, the saying yes has just, it's brought me a lot of truth. It's brought me a lot of happiness. It's brought me a lot of newness. It's brought me a lot of, and this is going to go to like a Buddhist thing, but it brought me a lot of emptiness. Like I've freed myself of a lot of things. And that I think is worth the experience in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot with a question here, because if it's hard sometimes when I get asked this stuff, I'm like, oh, you know, like, you know, one of the things that came up to me when you're talking is I feel like you've listened to the guidance, right? So that's, I think, one of the steps, and it's hard, is like, okay, we open our hearts, but then it's like, do we listen? Do we pay attention to the guidance? Do you have any stories that you can, you know, offhand that you can think of, like, hey, this was like how guidance unfolded. This is how the miracle unfolded. Like some examples of that, so people could kind of like get some insight with that. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, when I went to do the first retreat, it was in March, and the experience was so uplifting and so beautiful and so connecting, and just seeing what like you can really do if you put your heart into it and you do the work. Like really what you were just saying, how happy we could be and how peaceful we could be and how enjoy we can be if we do the work and do what we need to do to find our truth and step away from that ego, you know, which a few years ago, I didn't even really know what the word meant. So the crashing of the ego has been another huge like ball game for me. So yeah, I think like, so what happened was after I got back from the retreat, you know, I sent a message to my friend and I was like, I want to come back. I want more, you know, and I find myself saying that a lot too. Like, I want more. And of course the people, you know, that are not, in that sense of, hey, this is a good thing, just keep going. I was like, am I crazy? Do I really want more? Because of, you know, it also brings up the pain. It also brings up the suffering. It also brings up the things that are not true to us. So even though you have to go through it and see it as something that you're not losing, you still have to see it. You still have to be aware of it.
Right.
So the guidance to go and to get deeper, like it just keeps leading me to want to go deeper. So even though I was in one part of my mind saying I was crazy, now I'm like, I'm not. I just want to go deeper. I just want to be closer to God. And whatever I hear to do to get there, and now I'm going to do.
I love it. Well, I think, you know, in this world, because it's so unique what you're doing, because people are like, oh, well, it's not making money, or it's not like achieving this goal, or it's not travel. It's all these normal things that people think are going to bring happiness. Like you're reconnecting with God and your relationship with God, and kind of removing the other things from your life that are the illusion and not God. And so people can't understand that. So it's crazy. That's crazy. That's irresponsible. That's reckless, right? Yeah, you're, you know, calling. I mean, you're following the calling of your heart, and your soul and what's real, like, and that's unique. And I feel like that's the invitation for everyone. And I would say this: everybody's path to that looks a lot different, right? I think like I used to, whether it's this story, which it does, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a part of me that's like, that seems amazing, and it seems scary as hell too, right? At the same time. Yet I used to read books and I like on stories like this and be like, oh, that is so cool, but never me. I could never do that. That's someone else. And then you have those dark nights of the soul, like you said, and you spiral and you get hit with it, like something's not working here.
Yeah.
And then we just ignore it. We distract ourselves and nothing changes. And you stopped ignoring it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, the biggest thing too is that it's still scary. The unknown is scary. But, as we're learning in the lessons too, that we need to know nothing.
Yeah.
And that's completely scary for me.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for me right now is to not know anything. Just to not know anything. Just to know that God's got me. And I don't have to worry about anything.
Well, even the lessons from the past couple of days that you've shared, that we don't know what this chair is, what this room is. Like, I remember first in my journey on Course in Miracles, like I was just like, it's a chair, bro. I don't understand this, right? And it's taken me years to be like, yeah, that's your perception of this object that you think is there that is nothing. Like, and you've done that to your whole world. And until you can like understand that like what you think is happening is not necessarily happening, or what you think or is not what's real, you're going to continue to participate in what I would call the pain, right?
Yeah.
In the illusional, fearful world of the unknown, or by thinking we can protect ourselves by knowing everything. I used to be in the beginning, like when I got into spirituality, I was like this, like, oh, I've got it all figured out. I know this, I know this. Like, my ego was just off the charts. And I remember doing this retreat, and I got mirrored back so hard on all these people, like, Gavin, you're such a know-it-all. And I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm this loving person, right? And it was kind of like I got chopped down, and it was a huge gift, but I was never aware of it. And the knowing part, it's like, it seems so scary to let go of like what we think we know and what we understand about what we see. Yet that's a huge part of the problem.
Yeah. And that's in the perception, because think about it. We're ingrained with that since, now it seems to be like the generations are coming up with less ingraining of you're a boy, you're a girl, we're to get married, we're to have a job for 40 years, we're to, have a home and raise our children in that. And our relationship is supposed to look a certain way. Everything's supposed to look a certain way. So for me, that's been the unknowing, is to let go of what those things look like. And it's still like when you see it happening again and you're still in that belief, you're like, oh my God, there it is. Like, I don't know if you do the levels of mind, but that's one of the things that we've been doing in the retreat. Really digging down to that belief. And then you're like, really? That's what it was this whole time? Like 30 years of, putting myself through something just because that's what because I believed I was separate. Really?
And it's like we have this, in those situations, we'll have these these big ahas, and then we feel guilty that we didn't learn it sooner. Like, I wasted the last 20 years being upset because my mom said something rude to me when I was 12 or something. It's like, no, you're missing the point. Like, you figured it out. Like, there is no path. I want to read something from one of your, we're kind of talking about this, but like the post, it was today, you said, quote, "Don't be afraid, only believe." What does that look like to don't be afraid, only believe?
Ooh, that's a big one, because, fear, to really have no fear, wouldn't that be a beautiful, beautiful thing too? Like to have not one little fear ever creep up.
That's what we're facing, right? That's the bliss. Like, just imagine.
Yeah, for me, what I was thinking when I wrote that was that, what was the from the quote, the scripture that I read, was that that's where the faith is that you really have to believe it. Like, you have to stand your feet in it, put your feet in the sand and believe it. Like, hold yourself in there, really don't waver. Again, that wavering just, has always been coming up for me. And when I noticed that I had been wavering, it usually takes me something to notice it. Like, I can just keep doing it. Like, I can just, I'm fine, whatever, just keep swaying. But when I'm standing firm, and when my feet are in the ground and I'm believing that and trusting that God, He's got me, that's when the miracles come up. And that's what I want, is I want to drop the fear altogether. Just drop it. So that is, believe is one of my words for the year.
I love it. Well, what I observe, just for everything you've shared, but especially from Mexico, I just see, like, in my mind, it's like you're just going to a deeper and deeper level of faith. It's like you uncover, you peel back the layers and you have more faith and more faith. And then it's, I don't know if easier gets to be the word, but like all the things that come with it, of the peace and the joy and the love, that all like is just then more and more, and it grows. But you overcame the fear of the initial step of saying, hey, I want to go participate in this way and really go for it. Like you said from the beginning.
Yeah, it's the diving in deeper. And yes, no, it doesn't get easier. No, it doesn't get easier. What gets easier is the awareness, I think. Like, you finally are like, okay, yep, I can see it, I can work through it, and then I got to move on, because there is going to be more.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more when I get faced, with something. I want to do it with grace, and being closer to Him allows me to do that. When I'm not doing it gracefully, I know that there's something, like you said before, there's something wrong. I've got to look inside. I've got to go in, and I've got to say, like, okay, what is it that's not working for me? And
do you feel like it's getting a little easier, like almost like you're developing like a faith muscle and like starting to get used to moving through the fear and what it looks like? Sounds like you have a lot of practices and stuff, but like, do you just feel like you're going through a lot of layers and it's equally, or is it like it's starting to get a little easier?
Yeah, it's still going through the layers.
Yeah.
It's definitely still going through the layers, and the layers, like, again, for me, the word believe right now means that it's not you believing in one thing. We're believing in God, and that's it. And everything around us can be said differently, done differently. But when you're aligned and when you're in the light with Him, it's only miracles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's powerful because I also feel like, we have these expectations of how we think things should go or how it would look, even like spiritually. This is what it would look like if I was closer to God, or if I understood that it's an illusion, if I didn't feel fear. Like, we have all these perceptions, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty powerful statement. The reason I'm asking, because I'm curious, number one, but number two is just for other people listening to this, is like, that's kind of what faith is. Like, our mind, our ego wants us to think, hey, it's going to get easier and easier. And that's not necessarily the word. It's that you keep going, and, you allow it to unfold as it will. And because as soon as you do the comparison of like easier, then the ego gets the chance to say, see, it's not working the way you think it should be working. It's not happening as fast. It's not as good as you thought, and it's like, that's not accurate.
Accepting it, just accepting it as it is.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I want to read something that you wrote. Okay. Now I actually think you wrote part of this, and then there were some quotes. And so I think you quoted some stuff. So maybe you can clear it up afterwards. But this first part was a Yogananda quote, like, stillness is the altar of the spirit. And this is back in September 26th, 2022. So I went back for this one. As I trek forward into the love of God, I continue to feel deeper and deeper that all things are bright for the good and of the divine beam of light. There is a good mist around in the mind that hovers over what my future is and what is in my mind as my future. In fact, it is even hard at times to even find the future in my thoughts because the only part of my mind that God is asking me to see is the present moment. Sometimes, even if I try to think of tomorrow, I activate the physical level of the body, and it gets tight and reminds me to come back to here now. And then this is where you quoted it. See and be what I have for you now, child, and then I can show you more. Be right here in this moment as it is, just as it is. You were just saying acceptance. There is no notice. There's no notice of right or wrong, but only what is divinely chosen by you, by me, by everyone. Look into this moment with the same eyes as your brother. Be kind, compassionate, and feel the peace of God with such intensity that you can understand even a thought that as my son had nails of the world being sent through him, he still forgave. End quote. And then you said, as I heard this message being given to me, I gained yet another experience of peace. I came to further relinquish of my hands, being open to receive what God is offering. And there's more, but you like that. It just seems like it's a walking invitation and relationship and divinity with God each day that you're undertaking.
Yeah. And I have to say, it's funny to hear you read it back to me, because when I'm writing, it's again, I probably wrote that at 1 a.m. I wake up a lot and just, it comes through. But I do remember that time when I was going through something and, I didn't know my future. I didn't know which way to go. And I was upset, distraught, fearful, all the things, all the above. But God kept telling me, just wait, just sit here and I'll figure it out for you. But as a doer and as, somebody that wants to know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, give me the directions. It's hard. It got hard. So God was just telling me that day, he's just like, just sit back. And the nails, I had this, this other epiphany of, Jesus in the nails. Like, he wasn't complaining. He wasn't saying, well, he was for a little bit. And then he was like, okay, well, they know not what they do. Yeah. Look into your eyes of your brother. And
are you guys stupid? How are you guys doing this to me? You not know who I am?
Yeah, you know who I am. That's right.
You have any idea who I am? How many
times do we say that?
On a cross and put nails?
Oh yeah.
Nope, didn't do that. It was like, well, I've been for a while, like every Jesus book I can read, or like, documentaries or whatever. And it's just, I just, find a lot of it. Some of it I'm like, I wonder about that. Other stuff I find fascinating, of like how this Son of God, walked the earth, and like what's taught in A Course in Miracles in the Bible, and a lot of stuff. And it's fascinating. Okay, another question. Now we're going to be wrapping up here soon. What advice would you give to people who feel stuck in the world, in their jobs, in their relationships, in their like monotony, in what they're used to? Like, what advice would you give to people who feel stuck?
Yeah, I just have to go to what I experienced for me. And that was, one, have faith that there's something else for you. Like, first you have to put your feet in the ground and say, okay, God, what else do you have for me? Like, what is your will for me? What would you have me do? And that should be done in every situation, really. But when you're stuck, to just say that, like when I was stuck in that job that was just taking over my life, and I was working 50, 60 hours and just exhausted, and time for nothing else, even going to church, like Sundays, I want to sleep in. I don't want to go to church, like just putting off everything that brought me, what I thought brought me joy. But really what wasn't bringing me joy was that I was not in my purpose. I was stuck. I wasn't happy. My mindset was miserable. So I think like the biggest thing for me, and when I see people that are not happy, like to really just change your mindset and to put your faith, for me, it's God. For some people, it might be something else, but for me, it's God. that to put my faith in there and just say, what is your will for me? What I'm open.
Yeah.
I'm open. I don't know anything. I don't have to know my future. But I know that if I put my trust in you, that you're going to lead me to the best future for me.
I love it. I really resonate with that. And, a real quick story. I have, we all have so many things to be blessed, about, and like, it's all good, really, depending on your perception, and I have a wonderful family and kids and marriage. And yet the hard part for me has been work over these years. So like, the responsibilities that come with like college and kids and money, and, all that stuff. And I used to resent it, and I've worked through that. And then for a long time, I felt like the only answer was like, I've just got to go live up on the mountain somewhere. Right. and like, that's good, and then I realized that's probably not going to work. But I will share on this topic. This is a big reason why I'm starting. I had the idea of the OneMent a long time ago, but I feel like my purpose and meaning is to show people how they can connect with God in what looks like pretty much the normal life. Right. I've done I've gone to college and gotten a job and married and kids and, the whole thing. And that, like, there's this doubt of like, it can be done. Right.
Right.
And so for me, starting this podcast was outside of my comfort zone, and starting the OneMent. And I felt like God was like, hey, like, I'm giving you guidance. Like, don't ask questions of how or what, but like, go teach it, go talk about it, go learn from it from other people, and like, share your journey along the way. And that's what I'm inviting people to do, is to kind of watch, like, hey, this is, it can look different for everyone on how they connect with God.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like, we can all connect with God right now without any circumstance to change. Right. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that real quick. And then what does a normal day look like for you these days? Like if you're not doing a retreat, like, walk us through your day.
So now I live in Lo DeMarco. It's about 30 minutes from Puerto Vallarta.
Okay.
And what I do first thing is wake up and look at the water. I have this incredible view, and I have this just beautiful backdrop where God's saying, like, here, spend some time with me here. And that's, we moved from Ajijic to Lo DeMarco. Ajijic is a bigger city. Lo DeMarco is a tiny little Mexican town. It's a fisherman town. So it's very simple. So I start my day off with prayer, quiet time. Sometimes I take a walk on the beach. Sometimes I walk into town. Sometimes I just sit in my bedroom for an hour or two. Depends on the morning.
This all sounds wonderful. By the way, the sun just came out, and I'm going to change this real quick. I mean, yeah, so far your sales job is amazing. You wake up, you've got an ocean view, you walk on the beach. Tell us more.
Some days I get on the computer and I work. I do still freelance graphically, so I still do that. I write, and then I just, like, right now it's just rest time. Right now being like and I feel like, God puts me through seasons, and this season for me is going to be a learning and a resting season. Like, really just diving into books, diving into writing, diving into, preparing for another retreat, and just getting my mind really reset again.
Obviously you haven't gotten the memo that there's no resting. You work your tail off your whole life, and then you die, Katie. Like, what have you missed about this world?
Well, I can say that I really have learned to rest. And when I've also noticed too, when I don't rest, now I'm the opposite of what I used to be the doer, and I still do, but when I'm doing, it's more on purpose, and it feels easier. And when it's not, when it's too much, And like you were saying before, the yes man, that's still kind of a lesson I'm learning. And there's a book by Lisa Turkers called The Best Yes, like really deciphering and using discernment to when to say yes and when to not say yes. And that for me is getting to be more like, do you want to go out to eat? No, I just want to actually cook at home and sit and rest.
Yeah.
Do you want to go hang out on the beach? No, I think I just want to read. So yeah, it's becoming like a normal thing for me. And in this little town, the culture is just so beautiful. It's so peaceful, and it's such an incredible backdrop. Like, I just feel so blessed to be able to, wake up and walk the beach, then work for a couple hours, then walk the beach again, or walk into town and get my fruit for the day and my vegetables for the day, and then come home and cook dinner. And that's pretty much.
From the sounds of it, all the people who judged you, that's not quite the narrative they thought would happen. That sounds like a very blissful, amazing day. So hopefully anybody who was like, what is she doing, gets to hear this. Sounds pretty cool. So now you have your Facebook page, and it's just like a KT, the letters, and at B. And I think Instagram is at the same. It's a little longer at Instagram. Do you know off the hand?
I think it's just KTB, just B. I think.
Yeah. The other one is just the B, and then it's BEE on Instagram. I will put it on YouTube. I will put the handles and the links in there that can see that. I'd love for you to share. So your website is also Zen B, so as in BEE healing.com. So ZenBeHealing.com. Correct. But I would love for you to share about more about the retreats and for people out there who would looking for something like that. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So it hasn't been made public yet. I'm still working out some of the details, but in April, I'll be having a retreat in Lo DeMarco on the beach. So it'll be a lot of meditation, sound healing, sound baths, whichever you want to call it, yoga. We're going to have beach meditations. We're going to have healthy food and nutrition workshops. We're going to do levels of mind. We're going to try to really dig deep into journaling and have some silent times. So it's going to be like a time of rest and rejuvenation. It's going to be a time of you. It's going to be time in the name of it, believe, is that, believing that we're worth taking that time to find a source again, to pray, to sit in stillness, to do all the things that, like you said, people are saying, like, that's your normal day. Like, I want people to experience what a normal day is when you're resting in the arms of God. And it's, of course, again, the beautiful backdrop of Lo DeMarco, 3 blocks from the beach.
Awesome. So cool. Yeah. And I will when you do make it public, give me the link and I'll put it, again on the YouTube that people can, in the notes that people can access.
It'll be it'll be on my website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in closing, I, again, so appreciate your time.
Yes, I appreciate you.
Want to commend you. I know we've only known each other for a year, but I get you, and I'm rooting you on. I'm so proud of you. I don't proud of the word seems very egoish, right?
I feel it.
Yeah, it's like someone following their heart and watching them do that, and I feel like that's what people really resonate with. Is look at, she's being who she really is. She's going for it. In that term. And so any way that I can, help you on that or share your journey, I think a book's going to be in the future. I don't think you're going to have a choice like this. You're that's going to be happening, right?
I'll be talking to you later about that.
So anyway, anything you would want to add before we close this?
I just thank you, Gavin, for the connection in this OneMent. I can see it's heading in an amazing direction. I'm just honored that you asked me to be on here. So thank you, and honor for the connection.
On that note, I feel like, kind of like the first podcast was with David Hoffmeister, and it's somebody I've always followed, with the Course in Miracles. And he said, yes, I wasn't quite expecting that. Yet I also wanted to go into this, like, not necessarily like, oh, just who does everybody know or who has this huge audience. It's like, I think the stories like yours are just so powerful, and that I want to get them out to more people. And like, it's inspirational. I think faith grows faith, right? Between our minds, when we witness other people, stepping into faith and what that looks like, we're all doing that, right? As the oneness. And that's the thing, like the OneMent, kind of the little phrase is oneness now experienced, right? Like one, right?
Beautiful.
And I have this desire to like walk this earth living oneness like Jesus did. And so what better way to teach it, and what better way to learn it than people like Katie, who are out there, doing amazing things like you are. So thank you so much for your time. And please go and check out her Facebook page or her Instagram and take her up on one of these retreats. So I'm going to stick around and talk to you for a second longer. All right. Okay. But thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And Katie, thank you so much for your time and your sharing. Forgot to mention to her, all guests get a free t-shirt. This is one of them, Only Love. I will put in the notes below this video that my Shopify store for the OneMent of just, fun, inspirational t-shirts. And she gets to get a free one. And if you would like to see what's available, I'll put that in the notes. Got a lot more fun guests coming up with really cool stories and all over the board, and like what they're doing, how they're living their truth, and what it looks like to get through the illusion and to get closer to God and to live from oneness. So thank you for listening to episode number 2. Would love for you to subscribe. Would love for you to share this with people. Leave a comment, like it. You know the routine. Would really appreciate it. It helps get it out to other people who would be looking for this. So we'll talk to you pretty soon. Much love. Bye-bye.